Nicki Minaj really set the standard for what female rap is today. The way she rhymed, the iconic fashion, the hair, the BBL that is mandatory. But despite any corny jokes I can tell, as a preteen, Nicki Minaj was truly her. In the early 2010s, Nicki did what a lot of her modern contemporaries couldn't. It managed to get the ear of people who are actually fans of the art of rhyming, instead of, just women wanting to pop ass on a random Tuesday night. Nicki had mastered the art of rapping, making pop music, R&B hits, bangers. I mean, she had what a lot of hip hop artists don't, let alone modern female rap artists. The only ones who could objectively compete with her as far as talent and diversity were Lauryn Hill and Missy Elliott, in my honest opinion, which is high praise for me. An incredible set of women to be compared to. So where did it all go wrong? In my opinion, drugs. You let the barbs tell you Nicki has never she's never fell off. I mean, her last album went platinum, doing over 200K first week, and even without, all the bundles, she did like 92K just off pure sales. So you'd be hard pressed to argue the success of this album. So how did Nicki possibly have a downfall? Facts are this: Nicki is an S tier artist. She'll touch at least 100K regardless. People hated the Carter 6, and it still touched 100K first week because it's the Carter, his main series, and Pink Friday is Nicki's main series, her first and most popular set of albums. Add bundles as a factor, like t-shirts and concert tickets, then 200K isn't really a surprise. And let's keep it a buck, there's so many ways to manipulate numbers in 2025. It's not even funny. Drake and Nicki fans will acknowledge this when it comes to like other artists that they don't like Kendrick Lamar. But when, you look at them specifically sideways, then all of a sudden all their numbers and accomplishments aren't to be questioned. One thing that can't be manipulated is influence, reach, and respect within the culture. The truth is, Nicki went from a rapper that even your all-time favorite rappers respected, whether with Jay-Z, Kanye, Wayne, 50 Cent, Ross, Jadakiss, to not even being respected by, the nobody female rappers of today. As of right now, you either think Nicki is a bitter fallen legend or a hip-hop outcast for being too real. There are two reasons why a lot of fans turn on Nicki. One is heavier than the other, so I'll just start with that first. Talk about, the more petty reason. Nicki hates, and I mean hates, female rappers. I can't really name too many women within rap who Nicki hasn't beefed with. One of Nicki's first beefs and source of criticism as an artist was with Lil Kim. Apparently they had an encounter at a Lil Wayne concert where Lil Kim felt a bit disrespected. Nicki's attitude could, be a result of Nicki constantly being accused of ripping Lil Kim's style. According to, Nicki's recent interviews, this was all just a misunderstanding, but it would lead to subliminal diss records and not subliminal diss mixtape being released by Lil Kim. At the end of the beef, it never really went too far. But that would just be the beginning of Nicki's many beefs with female rappers. Nicki's most notorious beef has to be with Remy Ma. Two women in their mid-30s beefing, is going to be explosive. Apparently the beef started in like 2007. Jeez. Which, I'm just going to say beefing in 2007 is crazy. Damn near 2 decades of smoke. I didn't even know Nicki rapped professionally in 2007. I thought she was just releasing mixtapes or something, but apparently Remy felt Nicki was subliminally throwing shots at her and actually was listening to her music. Lucky for Nicki, Remy got locked up and the beef had to, be put on pause for like 10 years. After Remy came out, she had some buzz to her name, and one thing about, the Nickster, she doesn't like other rap chicks that could possibly challenge her. Nicki did what, she did with Lil Kim, and sent subliminal disses, which on its own isn't that big of a deal, but apparently behind the scene, Nicki is making some shiesty moves, trying to sabotage Remy behind the scene. Things like stopping her from getting awards and trying to get more people, writing and boosting news about Remy's album sales, which makes sense when you remember the bar that kicked off this rap beef was Nicki slick dissing Remy for not, having good album sales or plaques, therefore not being able to claim the title of Queen, which led to Remy dropping the notorious 7-minute scathing diss track Sheether, named after Ether, but she's a woman, so Sheether, where she claimed Nicki sat in the grass and popped her balloon or whatever. You get what I'm trying to. She popped her ass. My issue with this is, why does Nicki feel threatened by Remy Ma of all people? Yeah, there was a lot of talk about Remy at the time, and she has she has some street credibility, and she got off like a banger at the time, or what I'm saying, but realistically she was never on Nicki's level. Nicki was and is a superstar. Remy was a street level rapper whose biggest connect in the industry was probably like, what, I don't know, Fat Joe. I mean, she had a good ghostwriter, probably better ghostwriter than Nicki, but shout out to Papoose, but I don't understand how Nicki felt threatened by Remy Ma. But it goes to show just how insecure Nicki was when it came to other female rappers. Remy had no capabilities to compete with Nicki. She could have, let her. Nicki could just let Remy get the record of the year or best woman rapper of the year or whatever award that they were considering giving her for that year. It's not like Remy ever was, this certified hit maker who's going to have another hit next year to threaten Nicki's reign. Nicki will go on to run to, industry connections in a desperate attempt to make a hit record dissing Remy Ma. But even a catchy hook in her Drake and Wayne feature couldn't do it for her. A lot of people, including me, in my weak ass opinion, felt Nicki thoroughly kind of embarrassed herself within this beef. Nicki's next most notable beef took place the same year, weirdly enough. In 2017, Quavo tapped Nicki for a feature on the Migos hit record Motorsport, which also featured Cardi B, who was dating Migos member Offset. The beef between Nicki and Cardi kind of, starts in the same way as her beef with Remy, or really any other female, started, within an unnecessary line. And Nicki's original verse has a line saying, "If Cardi's the QB, I'm Nick Lombardi." The line is kind of weird depending on how you want to take it. I think most people took it as Nicki trying to sun Cardi B. At the very least, Cardi B took it that way, as Nicki was told to change that line, which she did. She replaced Cardi with Quavo, which, made way more sense since Quavo actually played football, because why would Cardi be the QB? Thanks to people like Joe Budden, I think. I can't really remember. It's been a minute, almost 10 years since this happened. So I don't know, but there was a lot of talk about the behind the scene drama, and Nicki felt none of it was charitable towards her, and it fueled her spite towards Migos, but more importantly, Cardi B for not defending her. Also, feeling Cardi didn't show her enough love, because Nicki really wants these new age female rap stars to bow to her. This would lead to a physical altercation where Cardi B would accuse Nicki of liking tweets, questioning her parenting, and making moves behind the scenes to block Cardi's bag. Kind of similar to what Remy Ma would accuse Nicki of doing. Nicki would deny saying anything about her kid and troll Cardi about, the whole accusation of her stopping bags. All this would culminate in an altercation between Cardi and Nicki, where ultimately no one was hurt. Except Cardi a little bit. But, ultimately no one was really hurt. the Nick and Cardi beef would, chill, for now anyways. But, that wouldn't stop Nicki from beefing with literally any other female gaining clout within, the hip hop world. After Cardi, it seemed that thought rap was, the next major push by the industry, which led to a slew of new women popping off in hip hop, like Megan Thee Stallion, most notably, and others like Ice Spice, Lotto, all of those who Nicki really can't stand, and we want to be honest. Especially like Meg and Lotto. Nicki's relationship with Lotto and Meg all started off great, with both of them dick riding Nicki. One thing about Nicki, she wants all these newer women to bow to her. She legitimately thinks of herself as the queen of hip hop, with any other woman being her offspring. Obviously, besides like Lil Kim and, Missy Elliott and, Lauryn Hill and, whatever other legendary female rappers. But, she wants the same respect that she wasn't willing to give to Lil Kim. She doesn't call, bitches her son 50 times on a track just to be silly. She really believes that. She lives her raps. As egotistic as, they say Kanye is, Nicki is 1,000 times worse. I promise you. Nicki and Lotto's relationship, would, come to an end when, a salty Nicki Minaj would call out the Grammys for placing her song Super Freaky Girl in the pop category. And in true Nicki Minaj fashion, she would throw Lotto under the bus because Lotto's record, Big Energy, was in the rap melodic category. Now let me explain why I think Nicki is kind of an idiot. Does Nicki have a point? I guess both songs are produced by Dr. Luke and rip off, interpolate, I believe that's the word they like to use nowadays, interpolate two classic records. While Nicki's is a slight bit more pop than Lotto's in my opinion, they both fit, more so in the pop category than the rap. The reason I think Nicki is kind of dumb is being put in a pop category is more of a compliment than being put in rap melodic, which is a very specific category and the only category someone like Lotto could even compete in. But Nicki didn't see it that way. Instead of just letting the newer artists get her shine in a category that wasn't even all that impressive, Nicki wanted, she wanted to be in that category because she knew she wasn't winning in the pop category at all. Embarrassing if you ask me. Neither would win a Grammy at the end. Nicki wouldn't even ultimately get nominated, which is probably why she didn't want to be put in the pop category to begin with. All that would come of this is an unnecessary Twitter feud. Lotto didn't really care too much about which category she was placed in, nor did she necessarily disagree with what Nicki was saying, but felt Nicki was doing it in a malicious and bitter manner, which she was. Lotto felt Nicki had been subliminally dissing her and overall thought Nicki was too old to be acting like this to someone who grew up idolizing her. And Nicki's point of view is pretty simple. It's pretty much, hey, you did all that dick riding for me in interviews, so you should defend what I'm saying. And maybe Lotto would have been happy to defend Nicki if she hadn't thrown her, under the bus. All in all, this was typical Nicki. Get salty when things don't go your way, and then expect these newer artists who you're slick dissing to fall into formation. Nicki didn't even think she, belonged in the rap category. She just didn't want Lotto to be in the category as well. This has to be the music version of "Come out, bro. They caught us, bro. Come out." I really just think Nicki didn't want Lotto to win a Grammy while she didn't. The thing is though, Nicki is way bigger as an artist than Lotto. But Big Energy is a bigger record than Super Freaky Girl, and that's okay, Nicki. You have way more hits than Lotto. Like, it's not even a competition. And you made those hits in an era where getting platinum records was harder. and you did it with way harder competition. Nicki came out when Drake, Cole, Kendrick, Wiz, Big Sean, Meek, Wale, and others were coming up. When Kanye was at his musical prime, his lyrical peak, with Jay-Z and Wayne petering down, but still at the top of the game. And she kept up with all these upcoming stars and current legends. Why Nicki feels threatened by Lotto is beyond me. Last person I'm talking about is obviously Megan Thee Stallion. Like Lotto, their relationship started, all friendly. Megan looked up to Nicki as well. Not as much as probably Lotto, but she did admire Nicki like a lot of these newer women do, because why wouldn't you? So she was happy when Nicki hopped on, her live, and they even collaborated on Megan's Hot Girl Summer record. Now, understanding when these beefs started is kind of complicated, especially with Nicki, since anything can set her off. If I had to imagine what started the feud, I'd say it's Megan's relationship with Cardi, as Cardi is Nicki's biggest rival, the only person with the star power to halfway challenge her. There would be some sneak disses, and Nicki would apparently like tweets that were supportive of Tory Lanez, who is currently in jail for allegedly shooting at Megan. I guess I don't have to say allegedly because he was convicted, but whatever. This would culminate in Megan dropping the coldest Nicki diss one-liner ever.
These hoes don't be mad at Megan, these hoes be mad at Megan's Law.
An obvious diss towards Nicki's husband, who we will talk about later. This completely set the beef off and gave Nicki an excuse to act belligerent and violate Megan for getting shot in the foot, with a track called Bigfoot, which is a crazy title. Despite the insane violation, most people thought this diss record was trash, toilet water. So Megan never really responded, not that she was going to respond anyways. Which I think she probably should have responded. Get someone to ghostwrite you a diss at this point. It was such a layup to me. There's so much to diss Nicki about. But Megan didn't. And ultimately, the beef would die off with Megan not even truly knowing what the origin of the beef was. At the end of, these beefs, people just look at Nicki like a bitter old woman hating on the young up and coming women. To get back to, Nicki's main op, Cardi B, while Cardi and Nicki would no longer really go at each other too much, the beef wasn't over. In 2023, Nicki Minaj and Cardi both attended the 2023 MTV Music Awards. At least I'm pretty sure they did, where there was a lot of tension and subliminal jabs. Afterwards, Nicki Minaj's stay-at-home street husband, Kenneth Petty, was outside making threats claiming to, be looking for Offset. Offset in response simply just laughed at Kenneth Petty for, the clown he is. 40-year-old man, damn near touching 50, engaging in female beef with individuals who were, just turned 30. Cardi might have been 29 at that point. Embarrassing behavior in my opinion, but I don't have much expectation from a male whose last name is Petty. Offset would laugh at Kenneth and go on to hang out with Kai Cenat and his friends. Truly embarrassing, but I bring that up to, get into the second reason for Nicki's downfall, which is going to take more time to break down. In 1994, Kenneth Petty was arrested and pled guilty to first-degree attempted rape. According to the victim, Jennifer Ho, Kenneth stuck what she assumed, was a gun to the back of her head and forced her into some building where he would proceed to engage in unconsensual sexual behavior with her. Kenneth's side of the story is that they were in a relationship and the sex was consensual. What you believe is up to you, but the reality is that he did plead guilty to attempted rape. Now, you can see how being married to someone who has to be put more like, really forced onto the sex offender list can negatively affect your career. It gets worse when Nicki Minaj starts publicly defending her husband, claiming he was 15 and she was 16 and they were in a relationship, which is a weird statement to make as Nicki wasn't there and as Nicki would be like 11 at the time, and to my understanding Kenneth was 16. I'm not sure what the difference that 1 year makes, a 15-year-old boy is still 9 times out of 10 overpowering a 16-year-old girl, especially if they have a gun. She also responds to criticism, pretty much saying Kenneth has changed and turned over a new leaf. Now, why a person who isn't guilty of what they did, what doesn't matter whether or not they changed? At the end of it, people are going to believe, a mother over a man on the sex offender list who also pled guilty to second-degree murder, who is still trying to be a street nigga at 50, engaging in female rap beef with individuals who are 2.5 decades younger. Yeah, I'm gonna take Jennifer's side any day of the week. This, in my opinion, is the final nail in Nicki's career. It's honestly amazing how it didn't sink her career. In 2021, they would link with, her and Kenneth, Nicki and Kenneth would link with Rihanna and ASAP. Weirdly enough, you think Rihanna would, or her PR would do research on who they're linking with, but, whatever. Days later, Kenneth would get in trouble for not registering as a sex offender, which is a crazy headline to have about your husband days after you linked with Riri. It's been 4 years, and I can guarantee you Rihanna probably won't be linking with them again. Compare the features of, on her Queen album, the guest appearances from 2018 to her Pink Friday 2 features, while all of a sudden Nicki can't pull these S-tier pop features and instead is working with like Lil Uzi and J. Cole. No disrespect to them, her biggest features on Pink Friday was Drake, and that's her label mate. That's one thing I'll tell you about these celebrities, bro. They don't really care that much about, how controversial these people actually are, as long as it's not really in the headlines. Nicki will tell you that she's been blackballed and this and that, but the reality is people reasonably don't want to touch her, and they went to the next woman to get that money from that audience. You know what I'm saying? I know it hurts. I know it really did hurt Nicki's soul to see Bruno Mars hitting up Cardi B to collab instead of her. But it kind of is what it is. I figured I was pretty much done with this entire video at this point, but apparently not. So Cardi B had dropped after I don't know how many years, finally decided to drop another album, and the album did pretty well, selling over 200K first week, which naturally pissed Nicki Minaj off. I'm gonna just read this article. Okay, the long-standing feud between Cardi B and Nicki Minaj was reignited Monday night as the rapper went head-to-head on social media. The drama began when Minaj, 42, they had to get her age in because this is ridiculous, mocked Cardi B's new album, I Am the Drama, in the series of sensitive tweets on X, and accused the 32-year-old, that's a crazy age difference, I'm not gonna lie, a whole decade, of inflating sales of her latest project, which is crazy coming from Nicki, bro. It's always wild to me how Nicki is always accusing others of inflating numbers, pretending like she does not participate, and maybe not the same, methods, but not also all these people be inflating their numbers. Like, let's just Nicki might not have access to maybe the same resources anymore, but all these people are doing the same, not maybe the exact same things, but they're inflated. A lot of these numbers are inflated, and screenshots of the deleted post, and I'm pretty sure in the screenshots of deleted posts from Complex, the Pink Friday rapper flung insult after insult at Cardi, including a post that simply read $4.99, a jab at the promotional price of Cardi's album. What does she care? What does she care in 2025? Why does she care? What does it matter to her what Cardi B is selling her albums to her for? Like, she just randomly, after years of not even really beefing, just coming to mention this individual's album sales or caring about her album sales. She's this threatened by Cardi B. She called the mother for Barney dangerous and flipped lyrics from Bronx rapper Track Magnet into mocking rhymes. Yeah. So pretty much she was on Twitter making fun of Cardi in the way she raps, blah blah blah, calling pretty much like calling her raps basics. I'm not finna read the tweet of her insulting Cardi's raps. Falling more tracks unsurprisingly the post caught Cardi's attention, and the rapper, who has never been afraid to tussle online or in person, began firing. If at a certain point, bro, if I was Cardi, I would start ignoring Nicki, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Which is a weird thing to say, but come on. After Truffle Butter, I hate when they what a random track to out of all the tracks, the Truffle Butter rap. Okay, took shots at the Grammy winner, who quipped at one of the, I'm sure Nicki has to hate this article, bro. They taking all kinds of shot. She's the Truffle Butter rapper, and Cardi's the Grammy winner. Okay, with the Grammy winner who quipped at one point that Minaj had interrupted her while taking rib and Blondie brownies, wrote nothing more annoying than a bored itch. Cardi seemingly referenced how Minaj had been quiet until her second album drop, writing one post, "You must have missed me, huh? Crazy. Now kiss my feet." In another post, Cardi wrote, "The power I have make these itches come out of rehab every time. Go to your effing room." Man, Cardi began going post for post with Minaj when the latter posted an AI generated image of Cardi dressed as Barney, accusing her of rapping like the purple dinosaur. Good one, Nicki. Cardi posted the mugshot of Minaj's brother Jelani Mirage. That's a crazy comeback. Who is currently in jail for predatory assault against an 11-year-old girl with a peak wit paste. What the hell? What is wrong? Why? How does Nicki? How do the barbs defend Nicki constantly being surrounded by whole entire PDS? Crazy. I think we get the point that the Nicki Minaj still has Cardi B on her mind. You know, the whole entire situation with Cardi, that's a whole other video to talk about her, everything she has going on. But it's clear Nicki Minaj at 42 still has not really grown up. She's still very much this petty individual. She's very much this bitter individual who's mad because she's been rejected by the industry. We went over the reasons why. Will Nicki Minaj at 42 ever reach the highest that she once was? No, never. But hey, at the end of the day, she's still Nicki Minaj. She's still, doing 200K. She still did 200K, first week. But Cardi did 200K first week, and that's probably why she's so mad. And she has to sit there and worry about, point out certain things like how much the promotional sales of Cardi's album. She was selling it for $5 apparently. This is why she has to point out all that stuff, because she is very mad that she's in the same boat as Cardi B. Especially when she's supposed to be a legend and Cardi B is Cardi B. Let's be for real. But I think that's the end of this video.